The grand halls of Krylos Prime shimmered under 1,000 floating lights. The station was a wonder of engineering, a meeting place built between the stars where dozens of alien races gathered. Ships of every shape and size clung to the docking, bays like glittering jewels. Inside, the grand chamber echoed with voices, some soft and melodic, others deep and rough. For the first time in many years, a peace summit had been called. Empires that once fought on distant battlefields now sat across from each other, speaking words of truce. It was a fragile moment, one wrong step away from collapse. Among the rows of tall and decorated guards from alien worlds stood a single, human soldier. His name was Captain Daniel Hayes, though most here barely noticed him. Humans were still considered young among the stars, their fleets small, their influence limited. Many powerful empires saw them as reckless newcomers who often rushed into danger without thought. Hayes knew this. He stood silently at his post, his armor plain compared to the ornate suits worn by alien protectors. Yet his eyes were sharp, scanning the hall carefully. He had been trained to expect the unexpected, for danger often struck when least expected. At the center of the chamber stood Princess Selani of the Veyari Empire. Her people were tall, elegant beings with soft silver skin that shimmered faintly under light. Her hair fell like flowing strands of crystal, and her eyes carried the calm weight of centuries of royal tradition. She was young for her kind, yet her presence filled the hall. Selani's empire was powerful, feared in war and respected in diplomacy. Her appearance at the summit was a symbol. If the Veyari sought peace, then perhaps the galaxy truly had hope. Hayes watched her quietly. She seemed calm, though he knew that beneath her graceful mask she was likely nervous. Many around her would protect her with their lives, yet sometimes protection failed. Hayes had seen enough battles to know that even the strongest guards could be caught off guard. The talks began. Alien leaders spoke of trade, of borders, of old wounds. Words filled the air like storm clouds waiting to break. Hayes shifted slightly, his gaze drifting toward the crowd. Something felt wrong. His instincts whispered danger. He couldn't explain it, but years of soldiering had sharpened his sense. His eyes moved quickly, scanning the balconies, the shadows near the entrance, the way some beings moved closer than before. And then it happened. A figure broke from the crowd, cloak whipping behind them. A blade of burning light appeared in their hand, glowing red and humming with deadly power. They moved fast, too fast, for any ordinary guard to react. The weapon was aimed directly at Princess Selani's heart. Time seemed to slow. The Veyari. Guards shouted, but their bodies were too far away, their weapons still sheathed. The princess turned, her eyes widening, but she had no time to escape. Only one person was close enough. Captain Hayes didn't think. He didn't weigh the risks. His body moved on instinct. With a sharp step, he lunged forward, throwing himself between the blade and the princess. The glowing weapon struck him across the chest. His armor flared with sparks as the energy bit deep, but it held just long enough. Pain tore through Hayes, but he gritted his teeth, refusing to fall. His body became the shield. Gasps filled the hall. The assassin snarled, trying to push forward, but Hayes shoved back with all his strength, forcing the blade aside. With a sharp motion, he drew his sidearm and fired. The shot missed as the assassin twisted away, vanishing into the crowd. Chaos erupted. Guards surged forward, weapons drawn, but the attacker was already gone. The summit was in panic, voices rising in confusion and fear. Hayes stumbled, his chest burning from the strike. His armor was cracked, smoke rising from the deep scar across it, but he was alive. He had taken the hit meant for the princess. Princess Selani stared at him, her crystal blue eyes wide with shock. For a long heartbeat, she said nothing. She simply looked at the human who had thrown himself into danger without hesitation. The hall fell into silence as she raised her voice, clear and commanding. "Stop." The guards froze. The crowd stilled. Everyone turned toward her. She stepped, closer to Hayes, her gaze never leaving his. Her voice carried not just authority, but something deeper, something personal. "According to the traditions of the Veyari Empire," she declared, When one saves the life of our royal blood, a life debt is sworn. It cannot be broken. It cannot be denied. The words rippled through the hall like thunder. Aliens whispered among themselves, some in shock, others in disbelief. Hayes blinked, confused. He had heard whispers of Vayari customs, but he had never studied them deeply. Life debt? What did that mean? Selani continued, her tone steady. This human, Captain Daniel Hayes, has placed his life before mine. His courage has preserved the line of the Vayari throne. By our law, by our honor, my life belongs to him until the debt is repaid. Gasps filled the chamber. A princess, bound by an ancient oath, to a mere human soldier. The Vayari guards looked, horrified, their silver faces pale. One of them stepped forward. Princess, this is unthinkable. He is not of our kind. He does not understand our ways. But Selani raised a hand, silencing him. Her gaze did not waver from Hayes. You speak of what he does not understand, she said softly. Yet he understood enough to act while others hesitated. Her words struck deep. Even the most proud warriors lowered their eyes, for none of them had moved as fast as the human. Hayes shifted uncomfortably. He had not saved her for honor, or for reward. He had done it because it was the right thing to do. But now, every eye was on him, and the weight of an alien empire's law pressed upon his shoulders. He opened his mouth to speak, but Selani stepped, even closer, her voice soft now, meant only for him. Do not fear, human, I know this is strange to you, but in my people's eyes your action has bound us. My life is yours to command until fate says the debt is fulfilled. Hayes stared at her, unsure how to respond. He was a soldier. He followed orders, protected others, fought battles. He had never imagined that saving someone could tie him to them in such a powerful way. Around them, the summit was breaking into arguments. Some alien leaders mocked the custom, calling it foolish. Others whispered that perhaps humans were not as reckless as once believed. The assassin was forgotten in that moment, all attention drawn to the sight of a Vayari princess standing beside a human soldier, declaring herself bound to him. Hayes finally found his voice, rough but steady. I only did what anyone should have done. Selani's eyes softened. No. You did what no one else did. And that is why the debt stands. The moment was carved into history. The human soldier who leaped in front of the blade, and the alien princess whose life debt would change both their worlds. But in the shadows of the hall, far from the lights and voices, the assassin slipped away unseen. Their mission had failed, but their masters would not give up so easily. And so, while the galaxy looked on in shock at the bond formed, that day, darker plots continued to move unseen, waiting for the next strike. The events of the assassination attempt spread across Krylos Prime like wildfire. Within hours, news streams were flooded with footage of the human soldier who had thrown himself in front of a glowing blade to save the Vayari princess. Commentators spoke in countless tongues, but all circled around one truth. A human had risked his life for royalty of a powerful empire. Captain Daniel Hayes never asked for attention. He was a soldier, not a hero. Yet now, wherever he walked, on the station whispers followed him. Some voices were filled with admiration, others with suspicion. Inside the towering crystal chambers of the Vayari embassy, matters became more complicated. Princess Selani stood before the council of her people, elders with silver skin that gleamed under the soft light. They were wise, powerful, and bound tightly to tradition. Hayes stood at the back of the room, feeling out of place. His armor was scratched from the assassin's blade, and though the medics had treated his burns, his chest still ached. An elder leaned forward, his voice sharp. Princess, you cannot mean to uphold this ancient law. A life debt to a human? They are reckless, impulsive. They lack the discipline of the old races. Selani's gaze did not waver. And yet, when danger came, it was the human who acted, while our finest guards stood frozen. Murmurs spread across the chamber. Another elder raised her hand. Tradition binds us, yes, but tradition can also be adjusted. The human need not hold such power over you. We could declare the debt symbolic and move forward. Selani shook her head firmly. To break the life debt would be to break the soul of our people. If our laws mean nothing when tested, then we are nothing. Her words cut through the air, final and unshaken. Even the elders could not easily argue. The Veyari Empire had lived by its traditions for thousands of years. To discard one now, especially so publicly, would reveal weakness. Hayes shifted uncomfortably. He did not want to stand at the center of an alien debate about honor and law. He had only done what any soldier should do. But now, whether he liked it or not, his name and actions had been woven into the heart of Veyari culture. When the meeting ended, Selani approached him. She walked with grace, though her eyes held the weight of responsibility. "Captain Hayes," she said softly, "I know this feels strange to you. You saved me because it was right, not because of tradition. But my people see things differently. To them, this bond is sacred." Hayes gave a small nod. "I understand. But what does it mean for me? I'm a soldier. I follow orders. I can't command a princess." Selani's lips curved into the faintest smile. "And yet, in the eyes of my people, you already do. My life is tied to yours until the debt is fulfilled. Wherever you go, I must go. Whatever danger you face, I must share." Hayes blinked. "That doesn't sound safe for you. Princesses aren't meant to follow soldiers into the field." Her gaze hardened slightly. "Perhaps not. But I am bound, Captain, and I will not dishonor my people by pretending otherwise." The days that followed tested them both. Wherever Selani went, Hayes was now expected to be near. Her royal guards shadowed him suspiciously, glaring at the idea of a human holding authority over their princess, yet they could not act against the law of their empire. Some alien leaders treated Hayes with new respect, though it was mixed with curiosity. They asked him why a human would risk his life for someone he barely knew. Hayes always gave the same answer: because it was the right thing to do. For many, this answer was unsatisfying. To them, actions were always tied to gain or loss, power or weakness. But Hayes meant what he said. He did not save Selani to win glory, to earn a title, or to gain wealth. He had done it simply because she was in danger, and he was close enough to stop it. Selani found herself studying him during these days. She had known many warriors of her people, all trained, disciplined, and bound by duty. Yet this human was different. He did not seek honor, yet it followed him. He did not crave recognition, yet he received it. He acted quickly, without hesitation, guided by something simpler than the complex codes of her people. She asked him one evening, as they walked through the glowing gardens of the station, "Why do humans act so quickly, without thinking of tradition or consequence?" Hayes looked at her, thoughtful. "Because sometimes, if you stop to think, it's already too late. We don't always have time to measure every choice. We just do what feels right and live with the results." Selani considered his words. To her people, every action was weighed carefully, balanced against centuries of custom. But perhaps there was strength in acting from the heart instead of from law. Still, danger lingered. The assassin who had struck during the summit had vanished, but investigations revealed troubling signs. The weapon used was rare, forged from forbidden technology not easily obtained. The attack was no lone act. Someone powerful had wanted the princess dead. Hayes listened carefully as reports came in. His instincts told him this was only the beginning. He voiced his concerns to Selani. "This wasn't random," he said firmly. "Whoever tried to kill you will try again. They failed once, but they won't stop." Selani's expression grew grave. "Then it seems our bond will be tested sooner than we thought." The royal guards bristled at his words, one of them snapping, "Human, do not think you know more than we. Our networks will uncover the truth." Hayes met the guard's glare without fear. "Maybe, but until then, she's still in danger. And I won't let anyone get close again." The guard fell silent, anger simmering but unable to argue. The human had already proven his worth once. Later, Selani spoke quietly to Hayes. "My people see you as an outsider. They doubt you, even as they are bound by our law. But I wish to understand you. This bond is not a burden, Captain. Perhaps it is a chance for me to learn something new. Hayes gave a small nod. And maybe I'll learn from you, too. I've never had a princess as a shadow before. Her laughter was soft. A rare sound, but it eased the tension between them. But peace never lasted long on Krelos Prime. One evening, as the station dimmed its lights to mark the passing of another cycle, Hayes caught movement in the shadows near Selani's quarters. His instincts flared. Without hesitation, he raised his weapon and called out. A cloaked figure darted away, vanishing into the maze of corridors. Hayes pursued, his boots echoing against metal floors. The chase was short, but enough to confirm his fear. The assassin's allies were still near, watching, waiting. When he returned, Selani met him with calm eyes, though her hands tightened, slightly at her sides. You were right, she admitted. This is no small threat. Whoever is behind this will not stop until I am gone. Hayes stood firmly, his jaw set. Then they'll have to go through me first. She studied him for a long moment, her gaze both soft and strong. Perhaps that is exactly why fate placed you in my path. That night, as the stars glittered outside the station's great windows, Hayes realized that his life had changed forever. He was no longer just a soldier standing guard at a summit. He was bound to a princess of an empire by a law older than his own species' first steps into space. And though he did not yet know the depth of it, he felt a truth growing inside him. This bond was more than obligation. It was the beginning of something that would shake the galaxy. The days after the second attack attempt were filled with unease. The halls of Krelos Prime, once alive with hopeful talks of peace, now echoed with whispers of fear. Delegates from distant empires eyed each other with suspicion, and rumors spread quickly through the crowded station. Some said the assassin was from a rival empire. Others believed it was an inside betrayal. Captain Daniel Hayes walked the long corridors with Princess Selani at his side, her guards trailing close behind. He had not slept well for nights. His instincts screamed that more danger was coming. Selani noticed his silence. You do not rest, Captain, she said gently. Hayes gave a tired smile. Rest is for when the threat is gone. Until then, I keep watch. Her crystal blue eyes softened. Even soldiers must sleep. Maybe, he replied. But assassins don't. Selani fell quiet. She could sense the truth in his words. One evening, as they prepared to leave the embassy for a council gathering, Hayes spotted something strange. A maintenance drone hovered near the corridor ceiling, its lights flickering oddly. Most drones carried steady blue lights, but this one flashed red in uneven patterns. Hayes frowned. That drone! It doesn't belong here. Before anyone could react, he raised his weapon and fired. The shot struck the drone and it exploded in a shower of sparks. The blast rocked the corridor and smoke filled the air. Selani coughed, her guards shouting in alarm. Hayes pulled her down behind a shielded panel, protecting her from falling debris. When the smoke cleared, the wreck of the drone lay twisted on the floor. Hidden inside its casing were explosives. One of the guards looked shaken. If it had reached the council chamber, half the delegation would be dead. Selani turned to Hayes, her voice steady despite her racing heart. You saw what none of us saw. Again, you acted without hesitation. Hayes only nodded grimly. It means they're adapting. When blades fail, they try bombs. Whoever wants you dead won't stop until they succeed. That night, Selani called Hayes to her private chamber. The room glowed softly with the light of crystal pillars, the walls alive with patterns of flowing energy. She stood by the wide window, gazing at the endless stars. Captain, she said quietly, I must ask you something. Why do you continue to protect me with such determination? My people would say it is only the bond of life debt that ties me to you. But you owe me nothing. Hayes leaned against the wall, arms crossed. I'm a soldier. Protecting people is what I do. Life debt or not, I wouldn't stand by and let someone get hurt if I could stop it. She turned to him, studying his face. His words were simple, yet they carried weight. Among her people, every action was balanced by honor, duty, or gain. But Hayes spoke of something else, a choice made not for reward, but for principle. You are different from the warriors of my empire, she said softly. They act for law, for glory, for recognition. You act simply because you believe it is right. Hayes gave a small shrug. Maybe that's the only way I know how to live. The next day brought new discoveries. Investigators recovered fragments from the destroyed drone. Buried deep inside was a signature, a trace of communication routed through hidden channels. Hayes joined the analysis, his soldier's eye catching details others missed. This isn't just one assassin, he said firmly. This is organized. Whoever's behind it has resources, networks, support. Scifi frowned. A rival empire? Maybe, Hayes replied. But if it were just one empire, they'd be more careful. This feels bigger, more dangerous. Together they followed the clues. Hayes used his experience in tracking enemy movements, while Scifi used her knowledge of politics and trade routes. Piece by piece, the puzzle formed. It pointed not to a single hand, but to many. Several minor empires, once defeated by the Veyari, seemed to be working together. Secret meetings, hidden supply lines, an alliance born not of trust but of shared hatred. Scifi's voice grew firm. If this is true, then the attack was not only against me, it was against peace itself. They wished to drag us back into war. Hayes nodded grimly. And killing you was only the first step. Their bond grew stronger as they worked side by side. Scifi began to see the value of human instincts, the ability to act quickly, to sense danger without waiting for endless debate. Hayes, in turn, began to respect her calm insight, her ability to connect political pieces he would have missed. But not everyone approved. The royal guards grew restless. To them, it was insulting that a human soldier guided the princess, even indirectly. One night, as Hayes prepared for patrol, a guard confronted him. You may have saved her once, human, the guard hissed. But do not think yourself worthy to stand at her side. You are reckless. You endanger her more by drawing attention. Hayes met the guard's glare. I don't care what you think of me. I care that she stays alive. That's all. The guard sneered, but before more could be said, Scifi herself entered. Her voice cut through the tension like a blade. Enough. This man has saved me twice when others failed. If you cannot respect him, then you do not respect me. The guard lowered his head in shame, silenced by her authority. Soon after, a secret message arrived. Hayes intercepted it while monitoring secure channels. It was brief and coded, but the meaning was clear. Another attempt was coming. This time the target was not just Scifi, it was the entire summit. Hayes brought it to Scifi immediately. She read the translation, her face pale. If they succeed, every hope of peace will be destroyed. Hayes leaned forward, his voice firm. Then we stop them before they strike. But how? She asked. They are hidden, their numbers unknown. Hayes smiled faintly. That's the thing about conspiracies. The bigger they get, the harder they are to hide. We just need to shake them hard enough to see who falls out. Scifi's eyes shone with a mix of fear and admiration. You think, like a soldier, direct, without hesitation. And you, Hayes replied, think like a leader, careful, balanced. Together, maybe we have a chance. The night of the next gathering arrived. Delegates filled the chamber once again, though tension hung heavy in the air. Hayes stood closer to Scifi than ever, his eyes scanning every shadow, every balcony, every movement. He felt the danger before it appeared. A chill ran down his spine. Then it happened. Panels in the ceiling slid open and small drones dropped, glowing with red light. At the same time, cloaked figures burst from hidden doors, blades drawn. The chamber erupted in chaos. Hayes reacted instantly. He pulled Scifi down behind cover, firing at the drones. Explosions shook the hall, guards clashed with assassins, and the peace summit descended into battle. Through it all, Hayes stayed at Scifi's side. His movements were sharp, precise. his every action focused on keeping her safe. Selani herself refused to cower. She guided her guards with calm commands, rallying them against the sudden assault. Together, they survived the storm. The assassins were driven back, many captured, others fleeing. And among those captured, one broke under questioning, revealing the truth. A coalition of smaller empires had secretly united. They called themselves the Alliance of Ash, sworn to end Veyari rule and plunge the galaxy back into war. When the chamber finally quieted, Selani stood tall beside Hayes. Her voice carried across the hall. The conspirators sought to divide us. They sought to kill me and with me the dream of peace. But they have failed, and they will fail again. Her people bowed their heads, moved by her strength. Beside her, Hayes stood silent, his weapon still in hand. His eyes met hers, and in that moment, they shared an unspoken truth. The bond between them was no longer just tradition, it was trust. But deep in the shadows, the Alliance of Ash was far from defeated. Their next strike would be stronger, and Hayes knew that this was only the beginning of a much greater war. The attack on the summit had shaken the galaxy. The Alliance of Ash was no longer rumor or shadow. It was real, organized, and dangerous. Their assassins had struck with boldness, and though they failed, they left behind fear. On Krylos Prime, security tightened. Armed patrols filled the halls. Drones scanned every corridor, and delegates moved with heavy escorts. But for Captain Daniel Hayes, no wall or guard felt safe enough. He knew enemies could still slip through cracks, waiting for the right moment. Princess. Selani stood in her private chamber, gazing at the stars beyond the window. Her reflection looked pale, yet her eyes burned with determination. She had been raised to lead, but never had she felt the weight of leadership so deeply. Hayes entered, quietly, his armor scarred from the last battle. "Princess," he said, bowing slightly out of habit. Selani turned. "You need not bow to me, Captain, not anymore." "It feels wrong not to," Hayes admitted. She gave a faint smile, then walked closer. "Do you know what the council asked of me today?" Hayes raised an eyebrow. "Let me guess. Step aside? Hide until things are calmer?" Her expression darkened. "Yes. They want me to retreat to the heart world, to surround myself with layers of defense to let others handle the threat. But I cannot. The Alliance of Ash will not stop with me. They will strike at peace itself. If I hide, the galaxy will think the Veyari are afraid." Hayes studied her carefully. "Then you're planning something." Selani nodded. "I will not wait for them to strike again. I will bring the fight to them." Hayes felt both respect and worry. "That's dangerous. You'll be walking into fire." Her eyes met his, steady and calm. "I am not walking alone. You are with me." 2 days later, they set out. With the evidence taken from captured assassins, Selani's intelligence network uncovered a secret gathering place of the Alliance, a supply station hidden in the shadow of a dying star. The plan was risky. A small team would travel there in disguise, gather proof of the conspiracy, and, if possible, cripple their operations. Hayes insisted on leading the mission. Selani refused to be left behind. "If the life debt binds me, then it binds me into danger as well," she declared firmly. No argument could sway her, so they boarded a disguised transport, carrying only a handful of trusted guards. The journey was silent, the crew tense. When they arrived, the hidden station floated like a dark wound against the red light of the dying star. It was no elegant structure like Krylos Prime, but a brutal shape of metal and shadows, built for secrecy and strength. Hayes tightened his grip on his weapon. "Feels like walking into a nest of vipers." Selani's voice was steady. "Then we cut through the nest and find the truth." Inside, the mission grew dangerous quickly. Hayes led the team through narrow corridors, his instincts guiding every step. Selani moved close behind, her presence calm yet determined. Guards whispered nervously, uneasy in the human's command, but they followed. They passed cargo bays filled with weapons, Enough to arm fleets. They overheard coded transmissions, plans to strike more leaders, to sabotage peace talks, to spread chaos. Selani's face hardened as she listened. So many lives. They will destroy everything we worked for. Hayes placed a hand on her shoulder. Then we stop them here, tonight. But the Alliance had been waiting. An alarm blared suddenly, red lights flashing across the station. Armed soldiers of many species poured from the corridors, shouting in harsh voices. The disguise was broken. The hunt had begun. The team fought fiercely. Hayes fired with sharp precision, his training carrying him through the chaos. Selani's guards defended her bravely, though they looked often to Hayes for direction, their doubts fading with each order he gave. Yet the enemy numbers were overwhelming. Wave after wave crashed upon them, pushing them back deeper into the station. Explosions rocked the walls, sparks raining down. At last they reached a wide chamber filled with towering pillars of power cores, glowing with unstable energy. Hayes quickly realized the truth. This was the heart of the station. Destroying it would cripple the Alliance's stronghold. "Princess," he said quickly, "if we overload these cores, the station goes down, but we'll be trapped inside. When it blows." Selani's eyes shone with fierce light. "Better to fall striking the enemy than to run while they grow stronger." Before Hayes could reply, the chamber doors slammed open. Dozens of enemy fighters stormed in, weapons drawn. The battle that followed was brutal. Hayes fought at the front, moving with the desperation of a man who had everything to lose. His armor was scorched, his body bruised, but he refused to yield. Selani stood close, rallying her people with her calm voice, her courage never breaking. At one point, Hayes was knocked to the ground, an enemy blade raised above him. Selani cried out and stepped forward, placing herself between Hayes and the strike. Her guards pulled her back just in time, but the moment burned in his mind. She was willing to risk herself for him. The battle seemed lost when the enemy commander appeared, a tall, armored figure from a reptilian species, his voice hissing with triumph. "You cannot win, princess," he spat. "Your empire will fall. Your peace will die." Hayes stepped forward, blood on his face, his voice hard. "You'll have to kill me first." The commander sneered. "Gladly." The fight between them was fierce, steel against steel, energy flaring with every strike. Hayes fought with human grit, using speed and stubbornness against the alien strength. At last, with a final strike, Hayes drove the enemy back, sending him crashing into a power core. Sparks flew, alarms screamed, the station began to overload. "Time's up," Hayes shouted. Selani and her guards moved quickly, rushing toward the escape routes. But the path was blocked by more enemies. Hayes stood his ground, holding the line. "Go," he shouted. "I'll cover you." Selani refused. Her voice rang with fierce strength. "No, if you fall, I fall. The life debt binds us both. Do not ask me to leave you." Hayes turned, sweat and blood on his face, and saw the truth in her eyes. She was not speaking only of tradition. She truly meant it. Something inside him stirred, a bond stronger than duty, deeper than law. "Then we fight together," he said. Side by side, human soldier and alien princess struck back against the tide. Hayes fired with steady precision. Selani commanded her guards with calm strength. For a moment it seemed impossible, but their combined will turned the tide. At last, they broke through, racing to the escape craft as the station tore itself apart. Flames and debris chased them, but they escaped into the void just as the hidden fortress exploded in a brilliant burst of fire. From the ship's window, they watched the Alliance's stronghold vanish into ash. Selani turned to Hayes, breathing heavily. "You risked everything again. You would have died for me." Hayes gave a weary smile. "Seems to be a habit now." She stepped closer, her voice soft but filled with unshaken truth. "Then hear me, Captain. By the law of my people, I am bound to you until my life debt is fulfilled. But tonight I make my own vow. If you fall, I will fall beside you. My honor dies with yours." Hayes looked at her in silence, then nodded slowly. Then we keep each other standing. The bond was no longer just tradition. It was an oath forged in fire. Yet even as they returned to Krylos Prime with proof of the Alliance's conspiracy, Hayes knew this was not the end. The Alliance of Ash still had strength, and their war had only begun. But for the first time he also knew this. He was not fighting alone. The destruction of the Alliance stronghold shook the galaxy. For weeks, whispers spread through star systems. Many leaders celebrated the strike as a sign that unity could defeat the shadows. But others feared the enemy's anger, certain that the Alliance of Ash would return with vengeance. On Krylos Prime, the council gathered in a vast chamber of crystal walls and silver floors. Delegates of many species filled the seats, their voices rising in debate. At the center stood Princess Selani and Captain Daniel Hayes, side by side. Selani's posture was calm, her silver cloak flowing, her eyes firm. Hayes stood in his battered armor, silent yet steady. The scars of their mission were still fresh on him, scars he wore like proof. A delegate from the Vulari race raised his hand. The attack on the Alliance station was reckless. You risked the life of a royal heir and endangered fragile peace. Why should we trust human soldiers in rash decisions? Murmurs spread through the chamber. Many eyes turned toward Hayes, filled with doubt. Humans were still newcomers to the galactic stage, their ways often seen as strange. Selani lifted her voice, sharp and clear. Because without this human soldier, I would not stand before you today. Without him, your children would sleep under the shadow of warlords. He risked his life when others argued. He bled when others hid. Tell me, is that recklessness or courage? Silence followed her words. Hayes shifted uncomfortably, unused to such open praise, but he did not speak. He knew this was her moment. At last, an elder delegate from the Karen people nodded slowly. Perhaps humans bring more than fire. Perhaps they bring the strength we forgot we needed. Later, in the quiet of Selani's private chambers, Hayes stood near the window, staring at the endless stars. His thoughts were heavy. Selani entered, her steps light yet sure. You are troubled, she said softly. Hayes sighed. I keep thinking about the life debt. Your people believe you owe me everything because I stepped in front of a blade. But it doesn't feel right. You've risked just as much for me. You've saved me too, maybe more than once. Selani came closer, her gaze steady. You misunderstand. The life debt is not chains around my neck, it is a bond. At first, yes, it was duty, but now it is choice. Hayes looked at her, his brow furrowed. Choice? Yes, she said firmly. When I stood in that burning station and swore I would fall if you fell, I meant it. Not because of old traditions, not because of law, but because I saw something in you that I trust above all. You fight not for power, not for glory, but for people. For me. For peace. Hayes lowered his eyes, humbled. I don't know if I deserve that. Selani smiled faintly. That is why you do. Days passed, and the threat of the Alliance did not vanish. Scouts reported gatherings of warships in hidden systems. Rumors spoke of a coming strike, larger than any before. The galaxy held its breath. Selani refused to sit idle. She worked tirelessly, building alliances, rallying species who once distrusted one another. Her voice carried hope. Her words cut through fear. But always, Hayes was near, a quiet shadow of protection and strength. One evening, as they studied reports in the war room, Hayes spoke suddenly. When this war comes, it won't just be soldiers who suffer. Whole worlds will burn if we don't stand together. Selani nodded. That is why we must be more than rulers and warriors. We must be symbols. If people see us, human and Vayari, side by side, they will believe unity is possible. Hayes hesitated. You think they'll listen? Selani's eyes shone. They will, because truth speaks louder than fear. The Alliance struck sooner than expected. A fleet of blackened warships appeared near Arian's Gate, a vital trade route. Their goal was clear: cut supply lines, starve worlds, and spread terror. The united fleet of the Council rushed to answer. Among the ships was Selani's flagship, and aboard it stood both princess and soldier, ready for battle. When the enemy fleet appeared on the view screen, a hush filled the bridge. Dark vessels loomed like predators, weapons glowing. Hayes adjusted his armor, standing at Selani's side. "This is it." Selani's voice was calm, yet it carried to every ear on the ship. "Today we do not fight for one world or one people. We fight for all. And we fight together." Cheers rose from the crew. The battle began. The clash at Arion's gate was fierce. Stars blazed with the light of exploding ships, energy beams carved through the void, and metal giants tore into one another. Hayes led ground teams in boarding actions, storming enemy vessels with grit and fire. Selani commanded from the bridge, her voice steady, her mind sharp, guiding fleets with courage. At one point, Hayes found himself trapped in a corridor filled with smoke and fire, enemy soldiers pressing hard. Exhausted, bloodied, he raised his rifle ready for one last stand. Then Selani's voice came through his comms. "Daniel, hold. I am sending reinforcements. Do not fall." Something in her voice filled him with strength. He stood tall, fought harder, and when reinforcements arrived, the tide turned. After hours of chaos, the Alliance fleet began to break. One by one, their ships fell, until the last vessel retreated into the dark. The battle was won. On the bridge of the flagship, cheers erupted. Yet Selani did not smile. She knew this was only the beginning. The Alliance would return. Still, she turned to Hayes, her voice soft. "We stood together and we prevailed." Hayes gave a tired smile. "Guess we're a good team." Her eyes lingered on him. "More than that, we are bound. Not by law, not by tradition, but by choice, by trust." For a long moment they stood in silence, the stars shining beyond the glass. Weeks later, peace talks resumed. This time, leaders listened more closely. They had seen the power of unity, the bond between human soldier and alien princess. When Selani stood before the council, Hayes stood with her, no longer just her guard, but her equal in the eyes of many. She spoke not of fear, but of hope, of worlds rising together, stronger because of their differences. And when she finished, the council rose in agreement. The galaxy had taken its first true step toward lasting peace. That night, on a quiet balcony overlooking Krylos Prime's glowing city, Hayes and Selani finally allowed themselves a moment of peace. Hayes leaned on the railing, watching the sky. "Do you think it will last?" he asked softly. Selani joined him, her silver hair catching the starlight. "Peace is never forever. It must be guarded, fought for, kept alive. But I believe we have given it a chance." Hayes looked at her, his voice low. "And what about your life debt? Is it fulfilled now?" She turned, meeting his gaze with quiet strength. "No, Captain, it will never be fulfilled, because what I owe you cannot be repaid. It can only be shared." He frowned slightly. "Shared?" Selani stepped closer, her voice gentle yet firm. "Your life for mine, my life for yours. Not as chains, but as promise. Wherever this path leads, war, peace, or beyond the stars, we walk it together." For the first time, Hayes did not argue. He simply nodded, a small, honest smile touching his face. "Then I guess we're bound forever." Selani smiled back, her eyes shining. Forever. And beneath the endless stars, human and alien stood side by side. Not ruler and soldier, not debtor and savior, but partners, bound by trust and choice. The galaxy still held dangers, but for now hope burned brighter than fear.